Hey guys, it's Kip Teitsort with DT4EMS, and I'm hanging out with Sean Hulsman, who's up in New York. And while we haven't met formally face to face, I have talked to him quite a few times. Very thankful for the way he spreads the message. But I asked him, and I'm very thankful that he agreed to do so, to join me in one of these hangouts to kind of give his thoughts. So before we get too far into it, Sean, if you would just tell us a little bit about your background, what got you into EMS, how long you've been doing it, that sort of stuff, and then we'll move on with DT stuff after that.
Yeah, great. First of all, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to talk to you. I know we haven't met in person, but it's good to see you on the screen. I know we'll meet later on in the year. I got involved in EMS back in the early 90s, and really it came out of boredom. I started with a volunteer fire service because my buddies were doing it, and I didn't really have anything else to do. And pretty quickly got involved with the fire service, took a few first aid calls, and I thought, you know what, fire's cool, but medicine's where I want to go. So within 3 years, I had my medic. I've been a medic certified now in New York State for 21 years. I worked for a number of different services. Took a little break in between and did some high school teaching. I got my master's degree in education because I was getting a little burned with the EMS scene. And then turns out I ended up back in EMS as an instructor. So I've come full circle. But about 23 years altogether in the field, and I love it. It's a job I love doing, and I have great respect for all the people who are still out there full time on the streets.
That's how did you first, well, let's back up, because Brett came out to you, Brett Piney. Obviously, it's very interesting, and we'll throw Brett under the bus here for just a minute because he's not here to defend himself. But my wife, the first time she saw Brett, we were speaking, it was while Brett was working on his instructor trainer. And so he was still at Missouri Southern running their EMS program. And he came out and met up with me at a fire department a couple hours away from where he was at the college. And while we were presenting, he starts jumping in and he was saying things. And I, threw him a topic to present. And my wife was like, wow, he really gets it, doesn't he? And I'm like, yeah. So he ended up, becoming one of our, top instructor trainers. And, just as a good guy, like, most everybody else that becomes instructors or instructor trainers become like family. But so you met him, and did you have any thoughts before he arrived? I mean, did you know much about what the program was going to be like? And then kind of take us from there into how it progressed through the program, and then what you thought of it in the instructor class.
Yeah, well, I think I'm a pretty good example of someone who's come from one extreme to the other, and getting involved in EMS. I mean, obviously Buffalo is nothing like a Detroit or like a Chicago or a New York City, but we have our inner city, and most of my career initially was in the inner city. And I was young, I was in my 20s. I'm a big guy. I'm 7 foot tall, and I played sports in college, and so for me, that excitement of coming around and, hey, I got a violent guy, we're gonna wrestle with him now, we're helping the police, that was cool back then. And I did a lot of that through my career with the police departments, and it just kind of, as I got older, as we were saying before I started recording, as you get older, those bruises hurt a little more, and they last a little longer. And I'll tell you what, it wasn't really until the West Webster incident, that tragic incident in West Webster with those firefighters getting shot, where I really started to take a critical look at the way we manage our personnel safety. And now being a manager in the company, we're worried for our people. And I talked to Brian, our CEO, and then Brian's thing has always been, his nightmare is that he's going to be woken up at 2 in the morning one day and find out one of our personnel has been injured or killed, because of a violent assault or an accident. And when that happened, it kind of hit home for me, So I started talking to Brian a little bit and said, geez, maybe we should do something. Violence is happening out there. I started doing some research. I found the things that you've been saying for years. And when I first heard about your program, in my head, I pictured, a bunch of guys in the dojo, Krav Maga, punch to the throat, taking people down, poking eyes out, and, all those things to say about, no matter what, I'm going home safe. And I think it took me a little bit of time to get past that and start to really research what DT4EMS was about. And then, I think we had a couple conversations on the phone. I called you, told you I was interested. I voiced some of my concerns with you as an administrator, and I think you pretty quickly put that to bed and said, no, it's not what we're about here, man. There's a message that we're delivering, and yeah, there's some physical stuff involved, but the message is more about how do we stay safe, how do we not have that confrontation, and that kind of sold me and sold Brian on it. So having Brett come in here for that instructor training, I think we had a little better idea what to expect. And I'll tell you, what we expected coming in and what we actually got was even better. To take that end user course for 2 days with Brett, who's great and obviously has a lot of skill and really is fantastic at delivering that message, to learning ourselves how to teach that message, and then coming from the guys, Brian's got some martial arts background. I do not. A couple of our instructors don't really have a ton of martial arts background, but how to feel confident in teaching those very simple skills, it was great, and by the time I got done with that program, we really started talking about, hey, this is something we should really be selling to everybody, not just our employees, but regionally. I mean, this is going to keep people safe. And I think from that extreme of, hey, it's cool to get into the role and fight, to where we are today with let's, really sell this, we've come a long way.
Well, and I really do appreciate it, because it's like it's constant, and I know that it was enough of a mindset change, or you were pleased enough with what the message was, because it was literally shortly after you became a trainer that you wrote an article. And as we've seen in the past, somebody will say something, whether it be a news interview or an article, and they'll mention DT4EMS and the EVE program and how it is an important message specific. We're mission specific, and yet you did this great article. And well, anyway, let's back up. So did you not, or did you write an article after?
I feel like I'm on the stand now. Yeah, so I did write an article, and to me, to fall back on a little old philosophy, it was the allegory of the cave. We had a bunch of people sitting there staring at shadows, and all of a sudden somebody turned around and looked out the cave and said, hey, here's reality. And I was that guy. I turned around and said, wow, this is the real thing, and now I want to sell it, and I want to tell people about it and say this is not, it's not a fighting course. We're not trying to do Krav Maga. We're not doing martial arts, MMA style stuff here. We're trying to stay safe. And so for me, the best way that I could think about to do it was to write it. I love to write. I do quite a bit of writing, and I think I'm fairly decent at it. And so I penned this article for one of the local regional people that I would write for, and got it in there. And the article got put in. And unfortunately, after talking with the editor, there was a lot of mention of the class itself, DT4EMS, taken out of it. And the reasoning was, I understand that they've done a lot of work about DT4EMS and a lot of work about provider safety. And I can understand from a media standpoint that you have different topics you want to cover. You don't want to get too heavy in one area. So I was a little bit frustrated that we had to pull some of that stuff out there. I did put the full unedited version of the article on my blog that I write for myself, and hopefully I got some information out there. But yeah, I felt like I needed to share this. I felt like I needed to go, hey, look, I've had a transformation here. I've experienced this thing, and you guys should do this too. And it was, I think I got to some people. I'm still trying to get to some people.
Yeah, it did, and I think I mentioned to you even while this was going on that I really appreciated you taking the time to even consider writing the article. Now, whether or not it would have ever been published is one thing, versus meaning it meant something to me, and that's a big deal. Is because then when I can read what you wrote, then I go, oh, yep, he's got the message. He understands where we're coming from and what we're trying to do, because. Like you've mentioned several times, there's a ton of fantastic, amazing martial arts systems out there, and every system is great for what it was created for. And when we attempt to try, and which is something that I did for literally the first 10 years, which was trying to apply police methodology and martial arts into the healthcare arena, because even then I was still going, there is some mindset stuff to it, but man, when the actual physical encounter requires a specific set of skills, and we were still controlling combative patients and all this. Well, it wasn't until about those, that 10-year mark that I went, man, this is still something still not right. And it wasn't until I really researched kind of like what the problem was that I go, oh my gosh, so that whole time, while we were still teaching escape skills, there were still, the message wasn't the same as what it is today, which is so mission specific that gets more people to go, holy crap, and like we talked about with age, when I was younger, loved, training, and I still love to train. I just can't do it as much as I used to, or at the level I used to. But the point is that it's kind of like if you really do your research on like a lot of the old masters of whatever the system was, it seems like they hit a point, and even people like Bruce Lee and and so many others, but they hit a point where they go from like the physical into the philosophical. You know what I mean? They almost reach a point where they go, you know what? I trained all these years and I was really good, but it was only during this little section, and now I'm not as good with all those skills. Maybe I better look at a few more things than just the physical application when it comes to force of self-defense. And you know, really, once we researched what the whole problem was, and the more we started to get into the cultural issue, it's where you know, you start seeing everything can be reduced and down to a couple of things, and you can, you know, shake the tree all you want to, and they still won't listen because, first of all, it's not a cool subject to talk about. You know, they don't want to face the truth, just like I didn't want to face the truth, and just like you said, when you had that moment where you look around in the class, you're going, oh my gosh. But it's like, you know, people like you are helping way more than you know. So you went through the instructor class, and when you were done, and then now that you started teaching, have you witnessed some of the things that we talk about, like in the train-the-trainer program? Meaning, you know, your people, they start off kind of like this, and you can see the real skepticism, and then all of a sudden, as you chip away at the culture that they've thrown up as this fake armor, and you get to who they really are as a person, do you not see them go from this to, oh my gosh, to where at the end that they leave going, wow, this is, you know, I had more fun than I expected? Do you see anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think just about every class that we've had, you know, you get those skeptics who come in the door, and you can tell, just like you said, by the look on their face, they're there, okay, I'm not taking this class. And right now for our agency, it's voluntary. We haven't mandated it yet. So people who are coming in technically have some buy-in, but, you know, they're okay, we're sitting. And yeah, you see the change happen, and you know, it's both in the classroom and then in conversations that we have outside the classroom too. You know, case in point, we had a class last night, and it was the second night of our class. A few days ago, I had this discussion with one of our employees, and he's a big guy. He's almost my size. I think he's about 6'8". He probably goes about 300 pounds. He's a big man, you know. And we talked a little bit, and he was kind of reviewing the first class with me. He said, you know, I think this would be a great class for a new person coming into the field who doesn't have experience. But, you know, I've worked in the city for a long time, and I've rolled with some guys before, you know, and I'm a big guy, and I can handle myself. And you know, my discussion with him turned around to, I get it. I get you're a big guy. And I get 9 times out of 10, you're in the back of the ambulance, the guy who's back there with you is smaller than you. If he comes at you, you're probably going to sit down and crush him, right? But I said, your willingness to accept that as a provider, to not report that to the police, to not fill out that report and file charges, means that the next time that guy does that and he's sitting in the back with the 42-pound girl, you know, it's different. He feels empowered now that I can attack it in the EMS provider, and now maybe she gets hurt. And it's not just building safety for yourself, it's building a culture, as you say, to be safe for everybody. You know, we all approach it the same way. And I think it was a good conversation because we kind of came to understanding there. You know, and he was a guy by the end of the second night that was really getting into the movements and getting into the training, and you know, he really went at it pretty good with the fifth suit situation and did real well. So yeah, you can see that change over time, but you have to get him in there. You know, that's our biggest thing right now is we got to get you in. I can talk to you about the class. I can post pictures online and videos, and we can discuss what it's about. But until you're sitting in that classroom, you start to really see the message, and it's not just about hitting somebody or taking someone down. It's about, you know, being aware of what's going on there and avoiding a fight just by talking someone down. You know, that's the important stuff. So yeah, we've seen a lot of those changes go through there. And as an educator, that's fulfilling. You know, that's what you want. You want someone to walk into your classroom and leave with a different mentality than when they arrive in your classroom. And we're definitely seeing that. Hopefully we're going to start seeing that on a larger scale.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we are, but it's, of course, like everything else, it's baby steps, you know, you know, again, I don't think anybody will face, and not that this is a good thing, but the ridicule from not only, you know, the healthcare side, but ridicule I even received from the law enforcement side for so long of, you know, there's no need for this, it's not a problem, and it's like no matter what, you know, you still can't get everyone to listen. And I guess the point is that they've been burned and so jaded so long, or been force fed something that their brain goes, this is crap. Well, you know what? I agree, because I was force fed some of those same things, regardless of what it is. But yet they're just not willing sometimes to go, well, maybe I do need something different. You know, I mean, because I mean, let's be honest. Has CPR changed? Has ACLS changed? Has backboarding changed? I mean, look at tourniquet changing. So all these different things that when we went initially through school, that they're like, well, this is the way it's going to be, and it has to do this, and you will do. So we get stuck with that It must be, I shall do because I was told to, and that's the way it is, period. So we get locked into this mentality. And you would have to agree, especially now that you've been teaching enough of these, that when you look at how we structured the program, and we'll just talk about the end 2 days or the end user 2 days, but that it's really that stripping away to get them to a point to where they go, oh my gosh, this is for me. And then that's why we do see it, and imagine what all we could be doing if we didn't have to spend all that time chipping away at the, fake armor that's there. And it's not, they didn't put it up there to be a jerk. They didn't put it up to hide something per se. They threw it up because that was just the culture that said, this is the way you have to act, or, we get in trouble, and, you have to do this and you have to do that. Well, if they really research, meaning even if they don't come to class, they really start to research, they will find that the women are hurt more often than the men, and are more severely hurt than the men when it comes to violence in healthcare. And the reason for this is the EMT or the medic female has watched their male counterparts, just like what you said. Look, man, if you're 6'8" and 300 pounds, there are not a lot of people that can beat you up. The danger for the much larger person is going to be a person resorting to a surprise attack or a weapon use because of the difference in your size. So then, you're going to see a different type of attack, but you still see attacks. Just talk to the guy that was 6'8", 440 that used to be he's still a security guard at a hospital, but used to be a student of mine. And you will see that there's a difference for every person. And again, why do you train? And what is your purpose? Well, anyway, that's the part where things like your article are really starting to help out, is because then people who are educated will listen to you. They won't listen to me because no matter what comes out of my mouth, it's a sales pitch. But when you go, no, look, guys, listen, just check this out. Just look for just a minute. And I encourage you, as a matter of fact. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, pluck a feather from every passing goose, but follow no one absolutely. And what that means is, my truth is slightly different than your truth. And what I mean by that is, if you're, almost 7 foot tall and you're 300 pounds and I'm 5'11", bad back, just coming off of a knee surgery, my truth is different than what we can do physically at any given moment in time. So the person has to admit their truth, when they come through class. And that's kind of like, how we take them in the very beginning. We are slow. And then by day 2, now they're ready, man. We're machine gunning information at them, and they leave going, holy cow, because first of all, they don't even know what the problem is. And in schools, we've been continuing to perpetuate the problem. You said that he mentioned this would be great if they were brand new. I agree. When they're brand new, they look at the first 4 hours of our class completely different than a person who's had 6 months on the street. If a person is brand spanking new and we get them in school and go, guys, it's not okay if a drunk chokes you, punches you, slaps you, spits on you, kicks you, threatens to rape you and your family, threatens to burn your house. This is not okay. Well, that brand new eager EMT student or that brand new nursing student would look at you and go, well, of course it's not okay. I just came from working at the convenience store or a bank or the big box store, and any of those things would have occurred at those places. A drunk attacking me at any of those places, we'd have called the police, and I sure as hell would have defended myself. But give them 6 months on the street and they've been indoctrinated into the culture, it takes us a minimum of 4 hours to strip away the false bravado that's there, to tell them the truth. Because we go, look, you wonder why I get so animated and crazy. How many times I have I started that off as a question, but I can't even begin to describe how many times when someone would look at me and go, now, who'd want to beat up a nurse? Who'd want to choke a paramedic? So see, that's the immediate thing that people meet it with. That are the public, that is. Until, now West Webster was 2012, and I don't remember, how far are you from Cape Vincent? And this is, of course, something I'm throwing at you by surprise. Cape Vincent, New York. How far are you from there?
Where is it, closer to Finger Lakes maybe, or?
I'm not sure, but Mark Davis was shot and killed in Cape Vincent, New York, on a chest pain call.
Yeah.
And that was before the West Webster. And of course, like, in class, you had West Webster, but then even in Missouri, where I was at in the Midwest at the time, we had one in Kansas City and one in St. Louis that were both just like West Webster, meaning a fire was set to lure in the responders. When the responders arrived on scene, they were met with gunfire. So Mary Seymour was in Kansas City. She was shot, and survived. Ryan Hummert was shot in Maplewood, which is a wealthy suburb of St. Louis. He was shot and killed as soon as he, got off the truck. But you know about those, from class, but some of the people listening may not be aware those even happen. Well, then how frustrating is it? Or let me ask this: if you had the opportunity to sit down with, say, a person that's in your position, to go, this is why I think that this is important that you or your people even, remotely research this subject. And of course, we're DT4EMS, so I want to throw that out there. But if you were trying to talk to someone who would be considered your peer, what are some of the things that you would say to them?
I think I would say, first of all, research the class. If you have any doubts about what's happening, contact Kip Teitsort. Contact someone who runs the class. Get some information about what it is, because, like I said, I think there is still that misconception out there that this is it's a fighting class. We put that on our flyers now, not a fighting class. And I think the second thing I would say is that look at the culture that we're in now. I mean, police with regularity are being ambushed, with lethal force. I mean, these guys are sitting in their patrol cars, they're getting ambushed, they're getting shot. We're seeing firefighters fighting, fire on a scene, and like you said, who would want to do that? But this is the culture we're facing here. There's a lot of anti-government, and I think people associate police and fire, and now starting EMS with a government entity. The man's coming to give me a hard time, and these assaults are going on. It's only a matter of time, I think, before people start taking some pot shots at EMS. And I hate to put that out there even as a thought, but I'm waiting for that. We run a system here where most of our ambulances are posted at corners. We run a high volume system. We're not in quarters every day. We're posted on corners. We're out on the streets, and God forbid it happens, but I'm waiting for something like that where we have an ambulance get approached by somebody and they have a problem there. So I think I would tell an administrator, have people be as prepared as possible. We want to avoid injury. We want to avoid both the mental and the physical cost of having somebody out of work with an injury, if anything. But take care of your people. We want to take care of the guys that are working for us. We've got this great group of guys and girls out there who have dedicated their lives to EMS, to helping people. They don't get paid great money in most cases, so the least we can do as administrators is to try to give them some modicum of safety, some knowledge about how to avoid things, a little bit of knowledge about what to do if things go really, really bad, and to say, it's okay to fight back. That's one of the big things I see with a lot of the people in the class we take. They're very hesitant during that fist suit thing to actually deliver a strike, because they know the guy in the fist suit, and when we tell them ahead of time, hit him hard. If he gets you in grip and you can't get out, target seek, hit him hard. And they still have a hard time doing that because, as as a medic, it's help. I'm not supposed to hurt you. I'm supposed to help you. And then we talk about that difference between the attacker and the patient, and people have a really hard time with that. Okay, this guy's trying to hurt me. I got to hit him back to get away. So I think I would tell administrators, check that program. Talk to me, talk to Kip, talk to guys who've done the program, and just get a little idea what it's about before you make a judgment on it. Because I think it's important. I mean, every feedback we get from our people who do their analysis at the end, they all say everyone should take this. Everybody in the EMT class should take this. The paramedics should take this. Everyone should take this. So it's good. It's just getting past that initial resistance.
And you would have to agree that the initial resistance comes from culture. And would you not? So it's culture.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
And so when we find that resistance, so don't you think it's funny that nobody has given them the truth of what they face, which is why they leave at the end of our class going, oh my gosh, because first of all, we're trying to tell them, number one, we're not asking you to give up your rights just because you work for us, regardless of our service. We care about you, but we also care about you as much as we care about patients. And the difference of it is that, and you would also have to admit that whether the administration has even been made aware or not, the use of force is still going on at your service, whether you know about it or not. True?
Right.
Okay. So when you have a person who has zero critical thinking skills to deal with the violence that they actually face, now whether that be they were aggressed upon by a drunk or drugged individual, or if they felt aggressed upon by a confused nursing home patient. Now, granted, we give that split so that we go, look, everybody thinks that there's either, thanks to social media, that self-defense means in order to win in self-defense, I have to kill, maim, destroy no matter what. So I have to win this encounter by destroying any opponent. And then you have the other side of the pendulum that says we are here to be sheep, to be victimized, and there's nothing we can do about it because we have some form of medical training and we are working for some sort of medical entity. When we say the truth is actually somewhere in between, and we've given our people critical thinking skills to handle when do I or when do I not start an IV? When do I or when do I not defibrillate someone? When do I or when do I not light it up, with 3 sirens? When do I shut them down? So we give them all these other abilities for critical thinking skills, except for the one that is causing the most injuries, causing the most lost work time in all of healthcare, which is violence. And we can scream it from the rooftops and you'll still have people go, nope, I want another study, give me another study. Well, while you're doing that study, you still have people that are either using force on people, or you have people that are attacking your staff and you're not being told about it. When it's been my experience, just like I'm sure it has been yours, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there will be times in the class where somebody will say something about a use of force incident and you look at them like, how did I not know that happened? How did nobody tell me that happened to you? And so you've got your people being victimized, but are forced to be victims through culture, not through what's true. And then you also have people that are using excessive force through culture, but just because nobody said that a drunk could grab me at that split second, that moment in time, the identical way that a confused nursing home patient could. And so if all we did was base it upon technique, we would have people losing their jobs, businesses being sued, and that's where our point has been all along, is that it has to be mission specific, because no one else on the planet has to go, are you a patient? Meaning, if someone goes to punch the cop, while the punch is already en route, does the police officer go, gee, sir, is your ammonia level okay? Is your all right? If you were standing outside of a bar and a dude takes a swing at you, you don't have to go, wait. Do you have a TBI? We don't have to do that in any other situation except in healthcare. And so you have to give your people some form of critical, thinking and, mission specific. So, I guess where I was trying to lead with all of that was that, would you not agree that then in the end or during your class, you've had someone tell you something that really makes you go, what? What? Have you seen that?
I've seen that. Interestingly enough, we've seen that with a provider who came to day 1, and then they came back to day 2 with a story about something that happened between day 1 and day 2. And again, it was something we hadn't heard about, and that was the exact question. Well, why didn't you tell somebody? Part of our embracing this program and bringing it in has been a reevaluation of how we deal internally with these situations. I think we thought our people were safe. We thought we had some good plans in place for that, and we've realized that there's some improvement that we can do as far as that. So we're in the process right now of drafting a personnel safety policy, including a bunch of things, and including the response to force guidelines and reports that you do. We're working on putting together a comprehensive program for crews and dispatch for calling maydays or being in trouble, how you handle that, who we're going to send. And I think DT4EMS EVE obviously will be part of that as well. So yeah, we're hearing a lot of things that why didn't you report that? Please report it. We've got your back. We'll go to bat for you. Brian's gone and talked to police chiefs and said, hey, look, we're not handling this. This is not going to go this way. We're pushing charges here. And I think it's working, but it's a lot of push from our end to try to get the other agencies in the area to understand that as well.
Because there were several things that just came up, and of course my brain jumps around to a lot of those. But number one was no different than those horrific stories of hearing where a police officer, a trooper, arrests a firefighter for not moving a fire truck on a scene. We address why that is. We address the whole that needs to be an admin thing, no different than the hospital with them or jail with me. There are certain things that we can do on the street, but there are also things that it won't change until admin meets with admin, because kind of like what we've talked about before, everybody thinks one way about what healthcare receives in training, and healthcare thinks something completely different, because it's too we've helped create this monster. That was one of those things that I posted recently in the last couple of days. But man, there was another point that you had made as you were talking about the culture and then the reporting. Oh, I know what it was. So one of the reasons why it is so different also in school. And when you talked about the personnel safety and the reporting issue, I use the rule of thumb a lot of times in class when it comes to a hazmat scene. And I go, hey guys, and it could be a room full of people who are brand new on the street, I'm not doing it for 6 months, and people have been doing it for, 20 years. And I go, hey, remember back in school, what does this mean when it comes to hazmat scene? And somebody's like, well, it means if I can't cover up that scene with my thumb, I'm too close. But then I go, wait a minute. But the blue canary's down there waving you. He's telling you, come on, there's bodies down on the ground, the tanker's on its side, and there's a green mist in the air, but the blue canary's waving you in, and you're covering up the scene with your thumb. Why aren't you going in right now? Well, then they'll go, because it's not safe. And I go, okay, well, hold on. What if it is a flash flood and you're on that regular truck, and there's a guy there, his car has been wrapped around a tree, okay? He's standing on the roof of his car, holding onto this tree as the muddy water is sloshing across the roof, and he's holding his limp, what looks to be about an 18-month-old child there that's just limp and is obviously blue and is not breathing, but yet you can't get to him because he's 25, 30 feet away from you while you're in, maybe an inch of water right now as you're standing and screaming, hold on. But he's begging you to come help him. Why aren't you going and helping? And they'll go, well, because it's dangerous. And I go, see, in school, we tell them about everything else, any other type of situation. And I go, if a building is on fire, could it be so hot that the fire safety officer, whoever that is, the fire captain, whatever, go get out, come out, and we would look at his bystanders and go, but wait a minute, y'all are the fire guys with the fire hoses and the fire trucks, and that building's on fire, and you just said back up, it's no longer safe for y'all to fight it? Well, then what are we gonna do? So see, they just don't get it. Could a police officer, a road officer find something that he no longer can control, so he has to call in SWAT? Did a military unit have to call in a QRF or a airstrike or something because they were now in trouble? And the other thing is where you were talking about mentioning with dispatch is a lot of things that we hear is, well, we bought these radios and they've got a panic button on them, so all our people do is hit panic, and then go, okay, that's wonderful. How long? First question, how long is it between the time you push that button and somebody gets there? That could be forever, yeah, especially if you're in the middle of a violent encounter. Second of all, how many times, go to your dispatchers and see how many times those have now been accidentally hit. And so now your dispatchers have become even numb to that going off and be going, units, status check, units, status check. And so there's not the same initial, what do we do now? And that takes you back to the audio of like and when the Gwinnett firefighters were taken hostage, when you listen to that breakdown and your brain's going, holy cow, because you can kind of hear as though the communications officer, the dispatcher is almost like, really? What? And talking to them in like a mode that you can hear that they're going, you've been taken hostage. Was the patient the hostage taker? I mean, it's just that whole mess where you go, be careful. Well, anyway, I say that to say, when we arm the people, would you not agree that when I say we're arming them with that information that they see so much ahead of time that they are so much likely to ever use the force? We teach the techniques because you messed up somewhere on a tactic. Would you not agree?
Absolutely, yeah, and we've had situations because of the region that we work in with, we operate with a ton of different police departments and fire departments, so we cover a large area. We got a lot of jurisdictions, so we do our best to get along with everybody, and we have pretty good relationships with law enforcement and that. But you get a situation where we had one fairly recently where the crew called the radio and said, hey, we need police here right now. And when the crew member called, in his voice, it wasn't terribly, upset. I need police here right now, right? Well, it turns out the patient in the back was getting up off the stretcher. He was a pretty big guy, and he was ready to start rolling with the medic in the back. And the dispatch question was, well, okay, what do you need police for? And then it's not because dispatch was being wrong. It's because when they call police say, well, what do you need us for?
Correct.
Well, and without some kind of terminology, mayday, meaning that it doesn't matter what you need them for, get them there now. Something like that. You're failing, and I think what it comes down to is having a system, like I said, with developing a system where everyone's on the same page. These words mean this. When the absolute crap is hitting the fan, you're going to use this one word, and there's no questions asked. We're sending everybody there hot to get you the help that you need. And if you have time to describe what's happening, okay, now we got some leeway. Yeah, we got a guy here. He's being a little bit uncooperative. We need police to come help us out. He's not beating us up. So having that process drawn out, and not only drawn out, but from my perspective as an educator, practicing it. You need to drill this stuff. I think at least once, twice a year, you should have a May Day drill, and we should schedule it and say, here's what's going to sound like on radio. We're going to get radio silence. We're going to go through this. We're going to contact law enforcement. They're going to send somebody over there, so that we're all on the same page. We all know what to expect before this happens. We know what to expect while it's happening. We know what to expect in the aftermath as far as reporting it and having charges pressed and dealing with the police and making sure the providers are safe and cared for medically. So there's definitely that cooperation level that we have to build a system. And I think for every agency, the system is going to be a little bit different depending on, if you're rural, if you're, urban, if you're suburban, there's going to be different challenges there. But as long as you're on the same page within your agency, I think you're going to have a much better outcome in those situations.
Well, absolutely, because so then let's take exactly what you said and apply it to like the program. So if we go, well, first of all, if somebody is trying to call for help in the middle of being attacked, race is involved. So if you think back to class, if I've got to go RACE and I'm so busy trying to talk on my radio while I'm continually being attacked, I can't defend myself and create space while I'm trying to talk on the radio. So that's one thing. The next part of that is that since we helped create the monster as it exists today, and law enforcement has a false perception of what, not only what the healthcare provider can or cannot do, when it comes to a physical skill, but that there's also that difference of, they think we've had more training than what we've actually had. As a matter of fact, New York I want to say, is the state where, I know it is. I'll have to look. It's 2013 case, but it's made your state Supreme Court. I want to say, and of course I'm not an attorney, but the whole when they're drunk they can't refuse kind of a thing. And that was a hospital in New York where the proverbial, well, we can't let him go because somebody. What if he gets run over and hit by a car? Well, that guy actually did, and then so the courts, when he tried to sue, the courts were like, hey, dude, not only do the cop or the doctors not have to hold on to you just because your ass is drunk, but they have no real right to do so. And so trying to get people to listen for all this time to say, look, one beer smells the same as 10 on someone's breath. And it can't just be a number. I mean, look at what everything a police officer has to go through just to show a person was intoxicated, right? At a .08 and it should have been driving. But yet, when you should have went home and worked on your electrical socket. And have you ever been intoxicated enough to hug a toilet? Well, did you need an ambulance? And so what would happen if someone's trying to force you to go when you didn't want to go? And so when you think about all those little pieces of the class between a human animal, and people go all the time, they go, I just knew something was wrong. Well, why don't we teach them how to use that to their advantage? So, and then the talking to someone. Why aren't you showing them how to really talk to someone under stress instead of turning around and ordering someone and go, back up, step out of the doorway, back away, calm down. You know what I mean? When people are already pissed off and you say something like that to a 7-foot guy who weighs 300 pounds, is he going to calm down? No, he's going to come and get in you even worse because you just now ordered someone when we don't have a right to be ordering anyone. We operate under consent, which means I asked. And so the funny thing, when you really break it all down, because you already know this, but for those that are watching, it's all about giving those people each moment, because there's somewhere in pretty much every violent encounter I've ever investigated that involved a healthcare provider, they tell me, and it's not by me asking them, it's that somewhere as they tell their story, there it was. And so I scratch a note, and then there's another moment, I scratch a note, and then there's another moment, I scratch a note, and then I ask them, and I'm like, hey, so when did you know this was going bad? And it's usually right at the moment when somebody said something that they're like, well, I'm going to kick your butt, or I'm doing this, and I back up, and I said, well, then why did you say that you were going to tech this call instead of your female partner when it was their turn to tech, right? A long time ahead of that. And they're like, oh, man. So see, there's so much more to it than just the physical skills. Now, all we can get in 16 hours is just show it to practice. But would you not agree that 16 hours is really well over 40 hours worth of material? I mean, that's a crap ton that we're machine gunning them.
Yeah.
And then it's because we have to try to go, look, we need to take them all the way back to the beginning. And so, again, the pitfalls or the barriers to training is number one, the culture. People going, well, I don't need that because I'll be made fun of if I even ask about that type of training. Number two, the cops think that, we have more training than what we do. The people feel compelled to listen to what the officers say about, jail with them or hospital with me kind of a thing. And then we have the flip side of the whole, just the culture as a whole. They've said, well, it's just part of the job. And, granted it is when the grandma's scratching you, but it's not when the drunk is scratching you while they're trying to attack you. Two completely different situations. And if we really educate our people the correct way. It's like you said, because you even talked about post-incident. And I know you've seen me share it, and I've said it a bazillion times, that oftentimes what happens after an assault is much worse than the assault itself. Because whether we go through Eric's story, right, where, as you read it and you read his stuff word by word, you get down to the bottom where it's like he's saying, all I want is this guy to stay away. That dude's broken, man. He's broken. I know he's broken. I've talked to him, and so many of the others that have said the different things that they have said, behind the scenes, all those stories that start off with, hey, Kip, I want to talk to you about something, but please don't tell anybody, and it's like we become this depository of, these horror stories that people just go, well, that doesn't really exist, number one, and, let's train for Ebola. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, it's all about the culture. Everything is all about the culture. And again, if they use the tactics before the techniques, and here's the funny thing, man, the funny thing, they've said things like, well, we just don't want our people to use it. And I go, see, that's the problem. If you took our program and you trained with the program, the end user's going, wow, we wish we had more time. And oh my gosh, this made sense. Every administrator, yourself included, as an educator you got a master's degree now? Is that where you?
Master's, yeah.
Okay, so not only are you an experienced paramedic, but you got a master's degree, which means you're a bazillion times smarter than I am. You look at the program and went, oh my gosh, this is a message people need to hear. You train people in such a way that they come in and then they leave going, oh my gosh, this is a message that everybody needs to hear. And yet, there's still such a barrier that, it's, we don't have to, we don't need it. I took 3 weeks of training over at my McDojo and earned my McBlack belt. Therefore, I don't need any physical skill. When we go, look, you can have former military, former law enforcement, current law enforcement, former, PJ, you can have former pro fighters, former amateur fighters, all these people that are now in EMS, fire and nursing, taking the program, go, oh my gosh, this makes sense. Because wait a minute, how tall are you really? How tall are you?
6'10".
6'10", and what do you weigh?
I'm 290 now.
Okay, so there's no doubt that a guy that's 6'10", 290 could probably handle most problems, and kind of like you alluded to earlier. But yet, what was it then that made you leave going, holy crap? And you've already answered it with saying, if we are compelling someone of your size, someone of your strength and your ability to do one thing, but yet having that 5'2", 115-pound female medic compelled to do the identical thing that you can do physically in a potentially violent encounter, then that's just not right, is it?
No, it's not. And for me, it's, yesterday was an interesting class because we had a young girl in the class, and she's about, I'm going to guess she weighs 120. Little girl, EMT, sweetheart. Kind of meek, a little bit mild, a little bit held back. We had to tell her it's okay to hit, but I had the other big guy in the class with me, and we're talking a little bit about base and working as a partner. And one of the great videos that you had posted not too long ago was that it was a fight that took place in a waiting room. A couple guys were involved, and what you saw was the two guys nose to nose, and the buddy came from the side, and with very little effort knocked this guy across the room because he hit him on his weak side. He knocked him off his base. So what I did was I grappled with the other guy about my size. We started going back and forth, talked about push me back, push you back. There's no way either one of us is going to fall this way. And I said, you're the partner. You grapple. I want you to come over here and just bump me from the side while I'm fighting with him. And sure as heck, I mean, as soon as she hits me, boom, I'm over. And it was, her eyes were like, whoa. And I'm like, that wasn't me faking. That was you hitting me in a place where I was not ready and I was not able to maintain my balance. So from a partner standpoint, if you're tied up with somebody, your partner's trying to defend yourself and he's still double tapping and all that stuff, and you come from the side and flank them, you're going to give them that time to get that check in there to get you both off scene. So it's that working as a partner thing that works out real well. But as you were saying, we all got to be on the same page. The one partner has to know what the other partner is doing. They've got to understand that assessment L. They have to understand the base and where people are weak so that they can work together on that. If only one person is trained, you're not going to get that kind of cooperation. You're going to see what happened in that video with the two female medics that got attacked by the naked guy in the hospital, where every part of that video, they were either pulling him from behind or pushing him forward. There was never any kind of flanking attack. There was never a coordinated response between the two of them, and clearly they never had any training, So yeah, it's got to be across the board, and people need to be together on the same page.
Yeah, and and so it's interesting that angle was something that picked up. So wait a minute, that's a principle that has nothing to do with the technique. So moving in angles and circles, the whole ability of that goes back to what is your truth. Your strength forward versus my strength forward, you're always going to win because you are bigger and stronger. But if I attack an angle, right, or defend using an angle, it makes it much more difficult. So that's that person's truth or my truth that's different from your truth. And so you're able to get that girl to see, oh my gosh. And I will tell you that probably Brett said it, because it's something I always say when it's the bigger, stronger person, like him, that becomes an instructor. One of those things that you have to overcome in the back is that little gal is sitting there going, yeah, but of course he can do it. He's a big, strong man. Of course he can get it. The thing I overcome, they're like, well, but he's been training martial arts his whole life. Of course he can do it. And it's like, you guys don't get this. What I'm trying to do is to say, it isn't about me. It's about you. Your truth is your truth. And if, guaranteed he did it in your class, and you should be doing it to yours. But if we one or two hand choke, once the moment that we see that they understand the principle behind it, we're supposed to be having their partners really choke the crap out of them. They're really supposed to be grabbed. They're really supposed to. Why? Because we want them to see that they can do this. But just like, everything else, and this goes back to the instructor tip, is that, if someone knows how they're going to defend, or knows what you're going to do, they know how to defend it, which is why oftentimes when I'm first demoing a skill, and, again, the videos during class that have to do with the skills, you can choose to show it or not show it. It's always up to the trainer, because once you know what you should be doing, you just go do it. You don't have to. But if you want to sit and take that break, take the break. Well, anyway, say whether it be the Mugger's choke escape or two-hand choke escape, or particularly even like the one-hand choke escape. I just grab somebody, I'm like, all right, choke. And so as they do first time, I'll double tap it. And then class is like, oh, so if he didn't choke you to begin with, you don't have to learn the fancy techniques. So see, it's all about prevention, prevention, prevention. Well, then I do, okay, but he grabs, now squeeze, squeeze. And as soon as he does, then I do our escape. And I'm always having to tell that person, about 3/4 of the way through to go, hey, you might want to go on down or it's going to break. And so then what happens is, because that person then not knowing how I was going to defend, and they're focused on choking me, which goes back to race, right? We do the distraction, we do the takedown, and all of a sudden it works. Same thing with the one-hand, two-hand choke. By us defeating all of the what-ifs in their brain before it even becomes a what-if, they start going, oh, okay, oh yeah, well that makes sense. And now that you've been teaching more and more, you're already knowing what your people are going to be using as what-ifs, because nothing can solve everything. Nothing's 100% effective, but when, you train specific for what we face, again, what I do in my martial arts is different than what I do for law enforcement, which is different than what we do in healthcare, So it's great that you brought up the base thing. And it's also great that you're like, hey, you posted that again the other day. You betcha. We have those. We're constantly working to always keep that information fresh and always stay relevant to what we're, facing right now. And I use the guinea pig term and say every class has been the guinea pig for the class that follows. What you see today is most certainly not what we were doing 10 years ago. And it's most certainly not what we were doing 20 years ago. We have continued to evolve, as are you as a trainer, and as you are as an agency, and all those things to keep our people safe. But, and then that makes my brain squirrel back to what happens after the assault is much worse than the assault itself. Can you imagine my anger, and why I keep bringing it up again, of being at a location, and it was Jackson County is where I was in Tennessee. Jackson County in Tennessee, and have 2 back-to-back classes. So that they brought me in for a week. I did 2 back-to-back EVE classes and then spoke at a conference on that Friday. It wasn't even until I was there. I did a check-in at the hotel, or I said it was in such and such of a place, that the gal, Jessica, sends me a message going, wow, you're here in town. Maybe we can get together with my family. And I thought, holy crap, this is where it happened, which isn't the first time. I've been in Appleton where the ED thing is. And I've been, different places. I've been in Sacramento where the law enforcement images were taken. So holy crap, I'm here. So I go to that class, and in both classes, mind you, this is the place where on Thanksgiving last year, a girl during triage of a psych patient was stabbed 105 times. I'm in the very city where it occurred, and only one person in each of the first 2 initial classes even knew it happened. How can you be in a city where you had a young lady who was 19 weeks pregnant at the time, stabbed 105 times, and you don't even know it? And you're in healthcare, because of course there's EMTs, paramedics, nurses taking these classes. And you go, you see? And it's like, but And that's my point. You know, it's just that you meet those people, and then people will, those stories get to you and they mean something to you. Or like I just posted with you, you're talking about year one, you know what I mean, where they have that change by the end of day two, or that person who comes in with something between day one and day two, where there's been a change, where something has happened, where you've made a difference. And one of those changes, when you've made a mention of something between day one and two, it wasn't between one and two, this particular one. This was a guy going through the instructor course and came in between day two and three. And he's like, you're not going to believe what happened. And had to do with and I will digress for just a moment, but it had to do with a severe respiratory distress. And so while he recognized how race happens, how behavior, what we're saying, and recognize the difference in a moment between a patient and an aggressor, because here this guy is a supervisor, and they had already asked the shortness of breath guy if he could hold the nebulizer, right? So that would tell him whether to set up the mask or the the handheld. And so I guess during he's doing his gasping, he panics and switches over. Well, by the time they hand him trying to hand him the nebulizer, he smacks it out of their hand, and he's, telling, I told you, doing that. I told you I couldn't do that. Well, anyway, he said he saw the medic, because this is now arriving as a third person supervisor. He saw the medic immediately get pissed because this dude just smacked him, right? But he's smacking his hand, smacking away because he's panicking, because he's scared, because he's a patient. So immediately the supervisor who'd been taking our class between day two and day three, sees it, and he's like, whoa, and changes the dynamics instantly. So that's that's a success on the street right there, because nobody got wrong what was happening, but you could tell that the medic was enraged. Well, anyway, as soon as he used verbal skills to bring the guy back around, validate, explain, request his help, you know what I mean, doing that type of stuff, it's like, holy crap. So see, would you not agree then that we're really a patient care program? We're a patient safety and satisfaction program. And when you look at it, because then we got our people treating patients like patients, treating them with respect, talking to them, doing just what they got in this job to do. We're asking them to go back to who they were, because our people are jaded, they look at things different. But it's funny that the moment we get them back to reality, the truth reality, their truth, your truth, my truth, but the overall truth also of what we face, they're different again. I don't want people to turn out like me. I don't want that. I don't want them to be obsessed over this. But those stories, man, make it to why you see me posting at 6 in the morning. You'll see me posting until 2 in the morning. You'll see me begging people like you to jump onto a hangout. Let me waste your lunchtime, because it's important. It's important to me personally, but it's important that people like you also get to experience it. When you experience that one person that tells you it made a difference, you then go, because what's one life worth? What's one moment after the assault worth? When I was interviewing Jessica, and I'm not going to digress too far into that, but when I was interviewing her about her situation with her family present, it was shocking to me to know that she wasn't being treated. It was kind of like they said, okay, well, and we're not going to get into too much in depth because there will be, legal stuff going on. But basically, the hospital's like, okay, your stitches are done. Now we realize you have a loss of mobility in your left side. And you're still blind in your right eye, but that's okay. And we patched up your stitches, so just follow up with the VA when you're done. And I'm like, what? Wait. Telling you to follow up with the VA. This wasn't a military thing. This occurred in the civilian world, and you're saying that the hospital is just going, well, okay, we treated you while you were in the hospital for a couple of weeks, but now that you're out of the hospital, you're on your own. And so what occurs after the assault is sometimes so much worse than the assault itself. And people, including like myself, I didn't want to talk about my carjacking for like a couple of years, man. I mean, and now it is like an integral part of the program, because I know now when people hear me talk about what I went through in my carjacking and how my brain processed and all these things that were going on, then they sit there and go, oh, really? Because they go, and they don't always tell you right away, but they're going, me too. That's what happened to me. Not necessarily a carjacking, but so wait a minute. We've been teaching about this, talking about this, and what is there, like 15 different either stolen ambulances or carjackings that we've had before the FDNY EMT was just murdered. And is it possible that if somebody, and we never blame anyone, and that was kind of a point I wanted to make earlier, we never blame anybody for anything when we've never given them an option. You know what I mean? So if nobody's told them don't do this or don't do that, we expect them to be control of a scene. We expect them to know how to do these answers. We're supposed to be the people when we arrive, everyone looks to us. But if you haven't given someone how to deal with a specific thing, how do you blame them if you didn't train them? But I'm asking, is it possible if someone would have said pause, you know, one moment in time, that mother of 5, you know, would still be with us? And, you know, we flip to that other argument if they go, well, but the partner was in the truck. And I go, stop, hold on. You need to understand something, guys. And that's where we go back to like the shooting things. And we use it with the, you know, so if I step out of the truck and I just catch a bullet and I'm laying on the ground and I'm screaming for you to come help me, if you come help me, you get shot too, because a sniper wants more bodies. What I'm asking you to do is get safe. From safe, you will then formulate a plan to come help me. But right now, whether our kids go to church together, whether we've gone to church together, whether our kids grew up together, whatever it may be, if I'm laying there and I just got shot and it's a sniper who's waiting to shoot another person, the moment you come out of that truck to me, you get shot. And it's like, you know, that's a hard reality sometimes for people to you know, buy into. But they will give, don't you think it's freaking stupid, man? And I'm saying it just like that, that they will they care more about a complete stranger than we do about our own selves or our partners overall in the big picture. Meaning I will place my safety at risk doing something completely silly to help a stranger. But here you are giving them the information that could keep them and their partners safer on the job, and we refuse to listen because you know, I have something else to do, or I don't know, man. That's into something else, but it makes me, it's that mentality, you know.
But you hit on a couple of good points there too, and from an educational standpoint, I guess, you know, if this part of it goes to the other people who teach the course, I would say there's 2 things you hit on. First of all, it's critique. You know, nobody likes to be critiqued in the aftermath, and we see that in the CQI process. You know, you bring somebody in, a paramedic makes a medical mistake, and oh man, I got raked over the coals and I did this and that. And it's not about that. It's about pointing out, in a perfect world, and my philosophy is this: I'm sitting in my office on a Monday morning with a cup of coffee and my feet up, trying to second guess what you did in the middle of a pediatric cardiac arrest. I'm not in the same boat you are, and I get that. And then we say, in a perfect world, what could have changed? How can we learn from this? You know, where do we go? And as an educator, it's a powerful tool to not, you know, chastise, but to critique. Hey, let's take a look at this. Let's see if there's a better outcome we could have made. The other thing I found to be very effective for me through my entire educational career, and especially in this class, is to bring up times, like you said, when I made a mistake. You know, because if I'm standing here in front of you and I'm telling you all this stuff, and then they say, well, why do you know this? Well, here's what I did that was stupid. You know, and you know, I brought up a story the other day. I worked for 5 years with a local police department that had a civilian paramedic division. So we were part of the police department. We were dispatched as a police patrol. I was not police trained. I was not a police officer. I wore the badge, but we were just part of the department as medics. And you probably know where this is going. You know, we got the psych patient. He was a big guy. He was going to be 941 as the statute in our state for a mental health commitment. And he already indicated he wanted to hurt himself and others. So we got 4 law enforcement officers there, myself and my paramedic partner, you know, and the guy decides he's going to get violent, you know. And, you know, as it happens quickly, and you've seen it in law enforcement and in paramedicine, he starts to fight. We got 4 law enforcement officers, get this guy down on the ground and wrestle him. And I'm standing here, 6'10", you know, 270 pounds. What am I doing? Oh, I better help, you know. So I jump on top of this pylon, and we're trying to get this guy down. And as we mentioned in class, you know, I have no training in handcuffing. I have no training in restraint techniques. I've got none of that. So at one point, and I'll never forget it, at one point I was up near the guy's shoulder. He's on his back. They were trying to get his hand around to cuff him, and I was absolutely in the way of where they're trying to get his hand. And the officer that I knew and worked with grabbed me by the shirt, and he said, "Get the F back," and he pushed me back. And I was kind of like, whoa, what the hell, man? You know, I thought we were cool. And, you know, after the call was over, we got him in, and he pulled me aside. He said, "Look, I'm sorry about that, man, but, you know, you were in the way. I mean, and you're not trained to do this stuff." And I had to admit, yeah, that was a mistake. I mean, I felt compelled to get involved, and I'm sorry. And, you know, we had no malice after that. We understood each other, but it was just that in the moment I jumped in, I got involved in something I didn't know how to do, and I caused them some more issues. And I think when you use those stories in the classroom and say, here's a mistake I made, and it was the outcome from it, it really helps out because it makes it real. You know, it's not just saying this stuff happens. It happened to me, you know.
Because that's the thing. And before I lose that train of thought, if you get a chance, watch Sully. I wasn't going to, because again, I try to, I can't watch too many things that are very emotional anymore. It's just, it is what it is. But anyway, I wanted to watch it because I wanted to see if there was something in it. And man, there was. There's a moment where, you know, they keep trying to show how wrong he was. And he turns around and he does something. He's like, but you're taking out the human element. And that's my point. We have such a cross section of people in healthcare right now that that were something, you know, different in a former life. And they're going to do everything based upon their human element, their previous training and experience. And so we want to make sure that we're arming our people so that, number one, if it does get to a point where they're feeling compelled to do something that isn't dangerous, that we make it okay with them to go, am I safe? You know what I mean? That's the first part, is that I have to be safe. Because in class, again, what do? They're looking in their brand new EMT textbook and it says, you know, EMS is a great, wonderful, safe profession. They turn the page and then they go, your safety comes first. So we turn the page and then it goes, duty to respond, duty to act. And then they turn the page and there's a great big one about patient abandonment. So the next thing that we left them with is, wait a minute, I got into this job to care for patients. And if I leave someone that you called a patient, I'm going to get in trouble for patient abandonment. So we have people remaining connected when they shouldn't, you know, that it is okay to tell someone to go, look, man, if at any time you don't want to go to the hospital with us, let us know. We'll pull over somewhere safe and let you out. And then we remove that perception of custody of medics that have jumped in with, you know, law enforcement and helping. And, you know, we've done a whole topic on that I'll never ask someone to not help an officer who's, you know, being injured, beat up, doing whatever. That's not what we're saying at all. What we are saying is I don't want that. And there was a picture recently posted, and I don't recall where it was from, but it was one where the officers are now standing with the guy. The guy is now in handcuffs, but the paramedic is now down on the ground. The paramedic was the one that got injured trying to help the officers take custody of someone. So now the paramedic, the image shows the medic is still on the ground. The bad guy and all the officers are now standing with the bad guy in handcuffs, but the paramedic is injured on the ground. So it is, again, all I'm asking is that when people do something, they do it based upon having a critical thinking skill ability and not doing it based purely on compulsion because of emotion. You know, it's that people don't understand, that have never experienced it, that one moment in time changes the entire outcome of the rest of my life. So one moment, and again, whether it be anybody's, I mean, you know, whether it was Sully not making the decision he made, once he proved the human element of it, you know, nobody done that. I mean, he did something that nobody else did. And so what you brought up with the not critiquing after the fact, but what can we do to learn from it, which is why we have that slide that says from here on out, any picture, any video, anything that you hear or see, we are never making fun of anybody. As a matter of fact, we're going to, you know, learn from them, and thankful that we can learn from, you know, and hopefully prevent it from occurring to someone else. Or if something does happen, we minimize the lasting effects of that occurrence, which takes me back to last, you know, thought process here, back to Jessica. So knowing how she was going to be treated based upon all of the thousands of people that I've talked to, not necessarily formally interviewed because I don't want it to sound like that, but I have talked to so many, and what they tell me about how they were treated after the fact, or what their life has been after that moment in time. I started immediately, before we even knew who she was. I didn't even know her name, but because we had posted about it, I did that rant on the business page on Thanksgiving, where you can't see a logo. There's nothing about that. It's just me being pissed off the day after Thanksgiving about, about her being attacked and nobody caring. And so some of her family members started sending me messages. They were cousins or sister-in-laws or however it played out. And they were sending me stuff. And so knowing how this was going to be while she's still in the hospital, still unresponsive, right? Because they've got her, you know, doing whatever they're doing. I started asking people to, you know, send thank yous, hold signs saying, you know, we care no matter what. Why? Because while I didn't know that they weren't going to take care of her after the fact, I knew they weren't going to take care of her after the fact. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So her having the ability that the moment that she's awake, her family's in tears and she's in tears, reading all of the different comments that people have made going, you know, we care about you, and, you know, get well soon, and all the people holding signs. And these are things that a lot of it we were doing, you know, hidden. We didn't ask the world to know this. We just wanted you to reach out to her because, well, you remember all of it, but we wanted her to know. And, you know, there's no doubt in my mind that is exactly why you see her on her Facebook posting continual survival messages. You know, we've done this, and yeah, I've got scars, but I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. See, we didn't tell her, like so many in the past have said, you know, well, you got attacked, and guess what? Suck it up, deal with it. That's the way it is. If you can't handle it there, you know, well, then, you know, tough. You shouldn't be in this business. And it's always those people who say stuff like that are the ones that have never truly faced a real violent encounter where they thought they were going to die. Because I can assure you, everybody that's been in a real encounter where they thought they were going to die no longer think it's funny. They take it very serious, and they're very serious with their compassion to anybody else that's ever been a victim. So it's just that people like yourself, and you know, like the others that you had help reach out and you know, support, or just like we've done a few others. That's what I think is a big healing moment, and that is another piece of, you know, the culture change puzzle. Because I now know, after 20 years, this isn't going to be fixed in my lifetime. By God, we're going to make it better for those that follow us. You know what I mean? That's what you're doing as a trainer. That's the message that we're starting to put out, and we're trying to attack it from both ends. You know, it took forever just to even get boots on the ground to go, hey, it's okay even to talk about. And then you'd have administrators to go, it never does occur. And then you go, well, then why is it that your frontline staff want to carry a gun on the job, but you don't think that violence is even an issue? And so where is the disconnect? But, before we wrap it up, because I've kept you on here for an hour and 15 minutes, is there anything at all that you want to say? Anything that's come to mind, something, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, anything at all you want to say?
I guess I would just follow up with, you know, if you're trying to get the message out there and people are thinking about doing this course for their agency or whatever, the biggest thing is this, the customer service that it teaches, and the empowerment of your personnel to let somebody out of an ambulance who's threatening to hurt them. You know, get out, to leave equipment behind on scene. You know, we had a student recently say, well, you know, if I use the cardiac monitor and I throw it on the ground as a block to get out the door, you know, what about the equipment? And our minds were blown. You know, I was like, who cares? We'll fix it. We'll buy new equipment. You know, I mean, throw all your equipment there, get it in the way, and get out to the house. You know, but having them sit through there and have an administrator say, yeah, we're more concerned about you than that piece of equipment. And you know, if the police aren't with you and the patient gets violent in the throughway and he wants to get out, you let him out of the ambulance, you know, and whatever happens. That combined with the customer service and the verbal skills, I think, as you mentioned, is going to probably stave off more violent encounters than anything else. Is just being able to talk someone down and empower your people to know what to do in those situations, and to know their safety really is first.
Yeah, and because again, you know, getting back to the whole customer service aspect is that, you know, because of our jaded mentality, because of the forcing our staff to hurry up on scenes and all the stuff where we've lost so much of the customer service, it's like, you know, people think it's a joke until they actually train with us and they go, holy crap, so customer service is a scene safety tactic? I never saw that. And it is true. We're not just browbeating them with going, you know, hey, no matter what, if the guy's choking the crap out of you or busy punching you, talk to him. And that's not what we're setting off. We can prevent the assault more often than not, but if we can't, we're giving you skills to back up to get away. Because again, it should be, you know, that thing to the administrator that they go, wait a minute. So if you work in a convenience store, no training on anything else whatsoever, first thing they're telling you, look, if somebody comes in to rob the place, give them whatever they want, man. Give them the keys, help them carry the register out to the door, tell them have a nice day. But in medicine, we're like, I have to stay because of the stretcher. I have to stay because it's a patient. So see, but wait a minute, the dude came in the store wanting something. He wanted to rob you, but he originally came in as a customer. You see, yeah, this whole, you know, you can't get them to realize that there could be a moment in time that a person is no longer be considered a patient until they train with us. And when you do that, it is an empowerment, because we're telling them, be nice to the people you should be nice to. Be respectful even to the people that are trying to be disrespectful to you. And if you're in danger, no different than the house is on fire, if the ambulance is on fire or anything else, it's okay to leave. We're not saying that your day is done. You know, you may have to come back. You may have to back away until it's safe. Law enforcement take control. Then you offer your care. But all we're asking is that people put it in perspective, and that's it. But anyway, I thank you so very, very much, Sean, for coming on and sharing your insight. I think we had some pretty good topics on this one. We'll probably just save it as is, you know, and do it then, but pull a couple of little pieces here or there. But thank you ahead of time for all the conversations that we've had. Thank you for, you know, training with Brett and training your people now. And I realize that that you've got not only the message, but you're taking the battle forward. So I'm going to click the end here and then hold on for just a second.